Welcome back to the news. We've got two games that are falling apart, some big lore news from the alpha that actually feels like, well, an expansion to the Warcraft universe. It's great. A huge surprise class rework, a little bit of drama over Khadgar, and a cinematic to break down. It's a hell of a lot, so let's get the sketchy stuff out of the way first. So, Season 4 and Catacombs Classic both showed up full of holes. Season 4 ended up with a launch that was just swimming in bugs. Things like the legendary not being upgradable to some people finding ways to get 6 tier pieces, meaning that they could have, two full bonuses at once, like a 2 set, a 4 set, and a 2 set, so that's kind of crazy, I'm a little jealous. The trading post mount, it appeared and was just literally not in the game for a while. Now that we're a bit into the season, these problems have been fixed, but most are considering this to be evidence that Season 4, while, we're having a great time playing, actually, and I think it's clear that it's at least a decent enough success, that it really is just a bridge to more content, more than anything else. Now, I do want to dive into these numbers a little bit later, but one of the people who hangs out in our community, Night Stalker, he's great, he does a lot of work, essentially just charting down how many people are jumping into Mythic Dungeons. And what's really fascinating is just how robust the Week 1 Mythic Plus numbers are. Now, you might look at these and think, Michael, you're completely mad. Those numbers are smaller than past seasons. Well, there's a pretty big reason why they're smaller, and that's the Blizzard completely refactored how Mythic Keystones work. So, the new Mythic 0, of course, is the equivalent to the old Mythic Plus 10. And the crazy thing then is that yes, these numbers are smaller, but Night Stalker pointed out when he was chatting to us that in equivalent Week 1 of past seasons, about 40% of the keys being done were actually in that lower bracket that basically doesn't exist anymore because, well, they're now all covered by Heroic and Mythic Dungeons. So even though that number is lower, well, you could kind of scale it up by maybe 40%, and that's what would get you sort of the equivalent if we were in a past season. That being said, it'll be really fun when Week 2 and 3 numbers come in. People will have more gear, and therefore more gameplay will be shifted towards, well, the actual keystones, and that does mean that I think the data will begin to get just a little bit closer. It's kind of interesting stuff. Anyway, the next and pretty broken thing is Catacombs Classic pre-patch. It's just on fire. I think this actually might be the most broken WoW release of all time. I mean, just look at this list of known issues. It's big, and those are just the ones that Blizzard have admitted to knowing. Guild chat is broken. You can't leave dungeons. Feral druids, congratulations, you don't work anymore. Pet classes, well, they've lost their action bars. Fine. Heirlooms are scaling wrong, teleporting to zones might aggro guards, and they actually had to extend Children's Week so that people could finish the quests, because it was also broken, and Workins just, couldn't do some dailies for some reason, and some people were getting 40 levels from winning one battleground. Kind of quite the thing. Bit unfortunate. Evidently, though, there's a price to be paid when you are shipping so many products at once. I mean, no matter how good your QA is, let's see, they're handling Season of Discovery, Classic, Dragonflight patch, getting ready for Mop Remix, and also the War Within is just in alpha. So yeah, I've got to imagine those teams are spread just a little bit thin. Anyway, let's hope they've seen the impact here and they can plan just a little bit better for any future content overlaps. Because really, I think that's the big thing. They now have so many things going on with WoW that it's all just overlapping. Next, though, let's go to where Blizzard has their focus, and that is the patch that is coming out in 1 to 2 days. We were given this lead-in cinematic, one that's reuniting Illyria and Khadgar. Basically, Jaina is off doing some research on the Radiant Song that basically has everybody stumped, but she at least says that it's not like the old god voices that historically had plagued people in Kul Tiras. Not that they did themselves any favors by, leaning into the squid and all their architecture. Anyway, Khadgar, well, he's lost a little bit of his jawline and maybe some of his social skills. He just feels a little bit older, doesn't he? Anyway, he invited Lyria to ask her for help. Basically, he needs his old hunter friend to do what she does best and hunt down the currently, right now, unknown Harbinger character. I wonder who she could be. He brings up her being a Void Elf, not Xalatath, by the way. I mean, he brings up Illyria being a Void Elf because, all of that voidy stuff that she did in Legion, and it does seem to be a bit of a sore spot for her. And honestly, it's a pretty good character interaction. I still wonder, Khadgar's face turned into a miniature drama. I don't think I saw it as much as some of the people that I've seen, but I don't know. What I will say, though, is that it actually feels really good to have a cinematic that feels like dialogue, you know? Characters talking to each other as if they know each other and have had a history, instead of Dragonflight, which was all just sort of characters giving speeches at each other, seemingly with the knowledge there was just a virtual camera floating about, right? Dragonflight it really dipped into just all of these weird, grand yeah, it was rough. In this case, though, much better, and they can really do quite a lot with the character acting. I mean, just all the facial animations, that sort of thing. It really is some top quality stuff. Anyway, for Illyria, I'm definitely getting red flags. She's troubled looking. I think she's still grappling with her voidiness, and, well, if Xal'atath is laying traps, I imagine she's going to be walking into them. If you look at Xal'atath's entire history, it has basically been knowing how to push people's buttons, and I think Illyria's buttons are probably particularly pushable. Of course, we'll find out more about all of this when Darkheart goes live. That's when we'll do the Harbinger quests, and, well, not a huge amount else. It is not really a big patch. Blizzard published the notes just recently, and the biggest things coming are basically that new story stuff and Mop Remix, which is 1 week later, but there is also the new Hunter stable, which does look quite nice, and the Draenei and Troll Heritage armor. Now, on that, Blizzard revealed that Dark Spear Trolls are also getting some bonus head items for doing it, so that's kind of nice. On top of that, we're getting more game changers like the Cult Tyrants having 6 more hair colors, a few minor quests, and honestly a lot of very welcome changes to various different parts of the UI. Especially the stuff they're doing to the pre-made group finder is really nice. It just has a lot of features that, well, honestly, they're massively overdue, but it is really good that they're in the game now ahead of a new expansion. Also, dragon riding races showing up on your map unless filtered, that's quite nice. And best of all, most of the annoying tooltips that help you on an alt are being removed. So that's quite nice. But okay, juicy stuff, alpha. Okay, we haven't had a chance to explore a humongous amount of it because some things were broken, but I've got to say there's some big new stuff brewing in the alpha. Hallowfall is honestly immense. Take a look at the crystal, right? Look at the transition from dark to light. The lore bits that are being uncovered are absolutely fascinating. I'm going to give you a sort of a top level one, but it's one that really feels like an expansion to the overall WoW canon. So what we've learned is these Arathi humans, right? Well, sort of. They're really like half elves, quarter elves, something like that. Anyway, these Arathi, they've only been in Hallowfall for 15 years. Want to know why? Because they only arrived there 15 years ago. And they did not. I mean, you're probably thinking, hang on, if they left 15 years ago, and I haven't really seen any Arathi human settlements that are super powerful in the Eastern Kingdoms, well, yes, that's because it turns out there's an entire empire of them. Somewhere. We currently don't know where. But yes, there's an entire empire of these half-elf, light-worshipping, quite technologically advanced fellas. They have their own emperor. They went there following a vision from their emperor, and to be honest, it's all really bloody cool. As for where they're from, my money is on Avalorn. We essentially get a little bit of a snippet that they were able to cross the Storming Sea. So, yeah, that basically means, the other side of the Storming Sea, if you remember some of the lore from the Emerald Dream, the most recent patch. Basically, Storming Sea, you don't really go past it. If you do, well, that probably means you're a pretty cool dude. So, at some point in the past, this could be like 1,000 years ago, bunch of Arathi, they somehow yoked themselves away, they survived, and they now have some sort of big light empire. Light and sort of elemental like fire, it really is all quite cool. This does mean, though, that yes, we see this expedition of them in Avalorn, but what will happen next? Will they be friend? Will they be foe? Not exactly sure. But this is clearly Blizzard realizing they need to start setting things up, right? They need to start setting things up for the future that actually feel like Warcraft and I suppose won't do a Shadowlands where it basically went back, regurgitated a bunch of old lore, really cheapened it to the point where Blizzard have even, admitted that in their GDC talk. Whereas this, well, this actually feels like they're cooking, like they're building, like we're actually stumbling into things that matter. So, kind of exciting. We'll have more on all of this fairly soon, and a bit of a highlight feature video on the dungeons as well, because, gotta be real, the dungeons cook. Broadly, this expansion seems to cook, and I don't know if I was to keep on talking like a Zoomer, the dungeons are cooking, and Blizzard has got the sauce. I think that's me speaking young person, I don't really know, but anyway, some of the dungeons, just really cool mechanics, a really strong sense of fantasy, just impressive stuff, actually. So we'll be diving pretty, deep into a bunch of that stuff over the coming days in the channel. To me, though, it's quite exciting, and the overall vibe that I'm getting is... It feels right. It feels like it's hitting that level of fantasy. It feels exciting. It feels like it's actually trying and landing the things that it tries. So, I mean, alpha's alpha. We'll have to see how it all builds up. But so far, anyway, I'm feeling pretty good. Next then, class things. 2 new hero talents are in this build. We've got the Archon for the priests, which basically turns them into a sort of unhinged Halo blasting machine, and then Fatebound rogues, who basically toss coins in combat to buff themselves and deal damage. Fatebound may not be the most accurate title, though, because they do have ways to game the system. They are rewarded for it by stacking up damage and stats, and I mean, look, both of them are pretty damn cool, but when you actually see how the Fatebound stuff plays, it just, again, it has a strong sense of fantasy. And I suppose if you're Fatebound and Outlaw, you are just a degenerate gambler. Next then, a surprise class rework that has gone down quite well. Arcane Mages. So, Radiant Spark is dead, it will no longer dominate your life, and maybe your opener won't be, this chart. Okay, now it does kind of live on in the form of Magi's Spark, which causes Touch of the Magi to do a big burst if the mage basically hits with its 3 main spells, Blast, Barrage, and Missiles, instead of just spamming Blast. Arcane Missiles is now only castable with clear casting, which they're actually reworking to be a more regular thing in your rotation, and that just overall means that if you like it complex, they are still going to add in some more challenge in the talents that will reward you with a little bit more damage, but overall, I think Blizzard basically realized a lot of people do want to blast out purple magic, but they also don't want to sign up to one of the definitely hardest specs in the game, so they went and they've made the changes, and so far it seems the mages are happy. Arms and Fury Warriors, you guys are also seeing some pretty big changes this build. Bloodthirst is becoming more powerful, and it's actually getting a new Enrage extension effect. And over in the Land of Arms, well, you guys are getting Cleave on a 3-second cooldown with more interactions with the rest of your spec. Basically, that's how you'll be doing your AoE. Then, Ret Paladins, some really nice little bits of news actually. Dots no longer override each other. They basically stack up, which is really good. The Templar Strike's cooldown has went up, so you are not so GCD locked, and we've got some pretty new things like a talent that pops wings every time you press Wake, which for a lot of people will just be really handy. But then there's demo locks. Oh, I don't really know what's going on here. Well, I do kind of know. It's contentious. So here's the deal. There's some pretty big changes going on. Nether Portal is gone. It's gone. They've removed it so that your gameplay isn't a case of just stack all of your CDs on top of each other. Now, that being said, Blizzard did say that they're going to workshop on Nether Portal a bit, and they seem to hope to be able to get it back into the design for this spec. So there's that. Now, you are getting a new Doom effect that's kind of cool. It basically counts down to an explosion, but, this is where the bad bit happens for a lot of people, and it does kind of feel a bit fun, please. But basically, the demonic core rate is being reduced, and even if it's not cool, they really do want you to be casting Shadow Bolt. And if you don't play a Demo Warlock, you might think, what does any of that mean? Well, basically, while you do things, you get these demonic cores, they let you fire off a demon bolt. So, if you're generating a whole bunch of cores, then you're just firing off instant demon bolts, right? Which, kind of cool, does a bunch of damage, but also, you can sort of fire while you're moving, as opposed to just standing there as a turret, casting Shadow Bolt, which people don't find that exciting. Anyway, that is it for the news this week. I will leave you with this, a sneak peek of the freshly added tier for priests from the War Within's first raid. I don't know who at Blizzard is maining a priest and is just bribing them so that the priests are always getting the best armor sets in the game, but clearly it's working. Man, yeah, priest tier. It's pretty much always amazing. Anyway, I've been diving a lot into delves. You can check out that video next, and we will be having like maybe 4 or 5 videos on the channel this week. There's going to be a lot of lore, a lot of gameplay. It'll all be very fun. So stay tuned for that, and click this next. Check out the delves, and I'll see you over there.